I'm one semester away from graduating. Geology major, University of Denver. I came to Ashwood to study mineral formations around the old canyons. Quiet, remote, perfect for my final research. My Uncle Jack offered his ranch as a place to stay. Hadn't seen him in years. When I arrived, the place was empty. No note, no call. Just the wind and the creak of the porch swing. I figured he'd show up eventually. So I waited. That night, just before midnight, I heard something coming from below the house. The cellar. Not an animal, not the wind. Something else. I grabbed a flashlight and went down. The air was thick, smelled like old paper and oil, and there it was, a wooden crate, half buried under a tarp. I opened it. Letters, stacks of them, dozens, maybe hundreds, some over 200 years old, handwritten, sealed. I reached for one.
You shouldn't be touching that.
I turned around. Uncle Jack stood in the doorway, weathered, silent, but his eyes were sharper than I remembered.
You weren't supposed to find that, Dave. Maybe you weren't supposed to be here at all.
What's going on, Jack? Why do you have letters from 2 centuries ago? He didn't answer, just stared at the fire pit outside.
You've got a choice. Finish your study, leave in the morning, or sit by that fire and learn the stories behind those letters. But I warn you, once you know, you can't unknow. What's written in there will change who you are.
I wanted to walk away, I really did. But something about this place, about Jack, about those letters. I followed him outside. He lit the fire, sat down, and started reading.
I didn't expect you to find those letters, let alone start with that one. The widow Blackwood. That woman had more grit than most men wearing a star on their chest.
Jack said it without even looking at me, just stirred the fire with a scorched branch. Eyes lost in the flames like they were showing him something I couldn't see. The letter looked like it had been melted by tears, slightly crumpled, soft at the edges. I kept asking myself what it was doing in his cellar. Damp wood, ancient dust, and a name on the envelope that stopped me cold. Rowan Blackwood. I didn't know who she was, but Jack clearly did.
That story, it don't begin with the letter. It begins with a death. But like most strange things in this world, it didn't end there.
That's when I knew. This wasn't just another spooky tale by the fire. This was the first of many, and maybe, just maybe, I'd opened a door that was meant to stay shut.
Hollow Creek was always a quiet town. One of them places where time don't rush and the law watches more than it should. But quiet, boy. Quiet don't mean peace. The Blackwood name carried weight out there. Elijah was the sheriff, man of the law, least on paper. He ruled with a hard stare and a harder fist. Rowan, his wife, she was cut from a different cloth. Silent, watchful, had that kind of gaze that peeled the truth right off a man's words. When Elijah dropped dead on them courthouse steps, they said it was his heart. But Hollow Creek lies easy. And Rowan, she didn't buy that tale. Didn't take long before she started writing. The letter you found, that's what's left of what she saw, what she understood. Now listen close, boy. Like you're stepping through soft soil. What comes next ain't meant for every ear. The Blackwood name carried weight out there. Elijah was the sheriff, man of the law, least on paper. He ruled with a hard stare and a harder fist. Rowan, his wife, she was cut from a different cloth. Silent, watchful, had that kind of gaze that peeled the truth right off a man's words. When Elijah dropped dead on them courthouse steps, they said it was his heart. But Hollow Creek lies easy. And Rowan, she didn't buy that tale. Didn't take long before she started writing. The letter you found, that's what's left of what she saw, what she understood. Now listen close, boy. Like you're stepping through soft soil. What comes next ain't meant for every ear. Hollow Creek, winter 1952. The courthouse looked more like a tomb with windows. Its stone foundation held secrets, stacked deep like bones in a shallow grave. At night, the columns threw long shadows across the empty street. No one walked there after dark. The town moved like it was tiptoeing on thin ice. And that's exactly how Rowan Blackwood felt, ever since her husband's funeral. Rowan was tall, thin, eyes always half closed, like she was trying to see past what was shown. Since Elijah died, she kept to herself, rarely seen at church, spoke less, wrote more. Her room smelled of candle wax and old paper.
If someone's reading these words, it means I didn't make it out. Or worse, I was heard too clearly.
It began on a cold, brittle night. Rowan was walking back from the pharmacy when she noticed something strange. The back door of the courthouse was slightly open. That door was always locked, always. But tonight, it creaked with the wind. She should have walked away. Any soul with sense would have turned back. But Rowan, she stepped inside. The hallway was narrow and damp, smelled of old stone and rusted iron. Down in the basement, she found ashes and something left behind. A page, burnt at the edges, but not gone, and on it, a symbol, a circle, split by two vertical lines. Looked like a closed eye, scarred shut. Rowan had seen it before. Elijah had drawn it once. On a napkin, during dinner. When she asked about it, he laughed. Old nonsense, he said. Something. From the old days, in the days that followed. Rowan didn't rest. She searched Elijah's things, and behind a loose brick in the fireplace she found it, an old iron key. That key opened more than a drawer, Davy. It opened time itself. In the courthouse archives, she found records that should have been buried, and maybe were, for a reason. Mentions of the same symbol in entries as old as 1871. Judges scribbled about it in margins. The symbol protects. The darkness listens. They called themselves the Inner Voice. Meetings held under the courthouse. Witnesses who vanished before their trials. Pages removed from public ledgers. A secret society, working in the shadows of Hollow Creek. How did no one ever hear about this? Rowan began, copying every page, every diagram. She made notes, mapped names, even sketched the symbol again. And somewhere in those pages, the name Blackwood kept appearing. The final page of the letter was written in a rush. The ink was smeared. The paper, dirty with soil and something darker. Rowan had seen something, and she knew they had seen her.
If someone reads this, I failed to leave. Or worse, I was heard too clearly. Tonight at midnight, they descend. I saw torches behind the courthouse. Men in dark robes. They are not ghosts. They breathe. They move. And they know I know.
She followed them, boy. Slipped behind the twisted fig tree. Stayed low. Watched. In a vault beneath the courthouse, they gathered around a red symbol carved in stone. It glowed. Not lit. Not flame. It glowed. They chanted. In tongues that ain't been spoken for centuries. And in the center, a chair. Iron. Empty. Then she stumbled. A stone. A snap. And one of them turned. The letter ends there. The next morning, Rowan's house was open. The kettle still warm on the stove. No sign of struggle. No packed bags. No footsteps in the snow. Just the letter, folded neatly on the bed, like she wanted someone to find it. No one saw her again. What she saw down there wasn't meant to be seen. Maybe those men were just men. Maybe not. But I know this. Rowan Blackwood was no fool. If she vanished, it's 'cause she dug too deep. And Hollow Creek and stayed quiet, like always.
So, you really think she was murdered? Or that she joined them?
Some secrets are good at hiding, especially when the ground helps them.
I sat there, unsure of what to believe. And for a second, I could swear the earth beneath my boots was listening. I thought the story of the widow would haunt my sleep. But that night, Uncle Jack handed me a second letter. It wasn't written in ink, and the map inside felt warm to the touch.